Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Thursday. That's my busiest day of the week, and I'm happy to kick it off with Lindsay Granger, who's back from, what, travels? Where were you?
I was in Los Angeles, New York,
wow.
doing some stuff for World of Travel because, you know, the series premiered last week for Nexstar, so I went to some Nexstar-owned stations and talked about it.
I saw your interview with Kevin O'Leary. It was very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, he talked about a lot. He actually went viral for some things he said about AI.
Yeah,
we can talk about it on the show yesterday.
I very much agree with him.
Do you?
Yes.
We're going to have to get into it then.
Yeah. Actually, we have a segment later where we should talk about that, the
Yes.
Bernie Sanders, Elon Musk thing. So
Yes.
save it for that.
We will. And I missed arguing with you, honestly, so I'm excited to continue on with our back-to-schedule programming. Coming up on Rising, Democrat Robert Garcia has caused outrage amongst Republicans after announcing that the House Oversight Committee website will have a so-called ICE tracker.
Plus, a new study on peanut allergies in children has some criticizing the medical community. Egads.
And Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett says she's considering a run for Senate. But first, Robby, what is on your radar?
Well, Karine Jean-Pierre, the former White House press secretary, is participating in a media tour to promote her new book, Independent, a look inside a broken White House outside the party lines. But her numerous appearances with otherwise ideologically friendly interviewers, Stephen Colbert, Tim Miller, Gayle King, have not gone well for a very specific reason. She has no satisfying answer to the question on everyone's minds. That question, which has rightly been put to her every single time she appears on television, is something like this. How could you not have known the president was in such bad shape? When King asked her version of the question, Jean-Pierre responded thusly.
I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing.
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously.
Yeah.
I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy, and also understood history.
Someone who was always there. Well, for Colbert, Jean-Pierre conceded that Biden's June debate performance was disappointing, but maintained that she had always seen the president in complete command of his faculties.
I saw every day a really ugly assault on someone who had 50-plus years of experience and who, again, objectively had done a good job as president of the United States. And it was heartbreaking to see that type of behavior.
I think all of that, everything you're saying, I cannot fault the factual basis of what you're saying or your feelings about it.
And then
what happened was the debate performance. Everything is downstream of that.
And no one is saying that the debate performance wasn't shocking, wasn't a disappointment. No one is saying that.
Disappointment is such a light term.
And then, with Tim Miller, Jean-Pierre demurred and admitted she could not speak to whether Biden was well enough to serve as president until 2028.
Like, the notion that this person was up for being president to 2028, was up for the communications responsibility of this job and fighting. No, well, if he won again, he would have to have been president all the way till 2028. I think that's an absurd thing to suggest that he could have been president. Do you think he could have been president in 2028?
I can't speak to that. Here's what I.
Well, obviously, no. But so was he up for it though? I guess. He didn't have the vigor for this fight.
Let me. We have to rewind the tape a little bit and not be revisionist historians here.
Seriously, why is KJP even putting herself through this? It's humiliating. The uncomfortable and unavoidable fact of the matter is that the news media, conservative and mainstream, had already taken notice of Biden's diminished mental acuity well before the debate. A majority of the American people had noticed it. A majority of Democrats had noticed it. The difficulty of concealing Biden's decline was such that the president's innermost circle shielded him from press scrutiny, kept his own cabinet at bay, and then scheduled can't-miss meetings with legislators during the periods of time throughout the day at which he was the sharpest. Now, she was the press secretary, and she didn't notice any of this? It's frankly unbelievable, unless she was unusually out of the loop. She certainly isn't claiming she was out of the loop, however, so one wonders then, why she would bother telling her story in book format and discussing it on national television if she cannot honestly reckon with these incredible shortcomings. Now, she says she's become an independent. She no longer identifies as a Democrat, mostly because, it seems, she doesn't like how the Democratic Party treated Joe Biden. I guess she thinks they should have stuck by their man and lost even worse to Donald Trump. Again, it's hard to take any of this seriously, and she basically seems like she's performing a stunt aimed at, I guess, selling books, if she's selling books. But if she's not going to grapple honestly with how she could have missed what many of you did not, even from a much greater distance, then I'm not sure why we should care what she has to say. And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but she was the primary comms person for a president who had lost the ability to coherently speak for himself. And I think, Lindsay, that she is just really kind of lost here, but am I being too hard on her?
Well, I just want to start with the positive news.
Okay.
I think it's honorable that she is, being so loyal to President Biden. She was his former President Biden. She was his, like you said, communications head for a long time, stayed with him, as she said in the CBS interview, 95% of the time, spent a ton of time with him. And now as he's battling cancer and, going through his experience of these later chapter of his life, to continue to pile on is not, to me, like I've consistently said, the best strategy for her. Now, selling books and not answering the real questions, maybe the timing is off, maybe wait a year when it dies down a little bit. But I just think that's honorable and set to the side. But like I said about Kamala coming out with her book or Karine Jean-Pierre, a lot of this consistent dialogue from all people of the Democratic Party was that democracy was at stake if President Trump won again. And so to hear her say that she couldn't believe and to read quotes from her book about George Clooney speaking up and saying that Biden should not run. And Nancy Pelosi, she couldn't believe it that they asked Biden to drop out, whether in secret or publicly. I just don't understand why we would continue to push forward when leaders of the party, big donors of the party, are saying this is not the best move forward. She said she didn't think that Kamala had the capacity to win the election, not because of Kamala not being sharp or smart enough, because she didn't think America was progressive enough to elect a woman of color president. And that's why she thought that was a mistake to switch gears. But tell me, if you were next to him and the debate was extremely a surprise, but then Jake Tapper's book tells us that Jill Biden was wholly protecting Biden and kind of keeping people away from him. But then you describe in many interviews Jill Biden as somewhat of a mentor figure to you. How can you, make it all make sense to us? And that's the biggest thing for me, is that people just want to understand your perspective. If you're going to be honest and real and raw and leave the party, fine. But people are looking for guidance right now, particularly in the Democratic Party after losing an election and seeing where we're at, literally at a stalemate with a government shutdown because of something that Democrats are requesting. What is the way forward? You're just leaving the party because of what a majority of people felt, discouraged by Joe Biden's leadership. I don't think that that's a good strategy. A lot of people are leaving the party because they felt let down by the fact
people
that
are leaving
Joe Biden
the
kept
Democratic
going
Party
forward.
For the opposite reason she is. She's
So it
leaving the
seems-
party because it was not loyal enough to Joe Biden. I mean, that's a constituency of one. That's just her. She's the only one in the entire country who feels that way.
And that's why I think she's looking at it like, a close family friend that gets older and not like a realistic, this is policy and
loyalty.
politics.
She is, I guess she is loyal, and maybe that's a good thing. I think this level of loyalty being shown to Donald Trump would be not something that liberal commentators would say.
I call out that all the time,
admirable.
so I'll take that criticism.
Yeah.
I do call that out often, that people are being too loyal to
Yeah,
President.
I wish people would speak up. If you see something, say something, like they advise us on the metro and at the airport.
But there's no need to even kick Biden while she's down. She wants to write a book and tell her story. I don't see the
I will kick.
necessity of her to kick Biden while
I
he's in
will
this moment.
I shall kick.
This is what we disagree on.
Yep, I shall kick. Next up, the DNC seems to be in rough financial shape just over a year out from a critical midterm election for them. The reason why is coming up next. We'll be right back.